morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be dialing in from around the world. Thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, Best Practices in Policy Administration System Transformation. I'm Michaela Bernier, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Before we get started, I just want to cover a few quick housekeeping items. This webinar is recorded, and a link to view the recording on demand will be available after the session. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them using the questions feature in the GoToWebinar toolbar to the right of your screen. I'll now turn the mic over to Martina Conlin to introduce herself and jump into today's content. Thank you all for joining us for today's webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. As Kayla mentioned, my name is Martina Conlin, and I lead the P&C practice at Datos Insights, formerly IT Novarica, formerly Novarica, and we're thrilled that you could join us this afternoon to talk about best practices in policy administration system transformation. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Martin Higgins. Do you want to introduce yourself, Martin?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Martin Higgins. I'm a senior principal with IT Novarica. I work on the property and casualty team. I've been with the company for about 5 years, and I do a lot of work related to IT strategy and core system replacement in particular. So looking forward to the conversation.
So today we're going to spend some time talking about best practices, gotchas, common pitfalls, project, things that you can do to be ready for your core system transformation project, and a little bit about what kind of pre-work that you can do in selecting your solution provider. And so a lot of this is from our work with our 150 insurer clients, our 450 Research Council members that we have conversations with every day, and we glean words of advice, best practices, lessons learned, and learn from their challenges. And so that's a lot of what is contained in this webinar today. If we could go to the next page, please. So let's talk first of all about keys to successful projects. And again, just to scope the discussion, we're talking about core systems implementations, which really focus on policy admin, and sometimes, and more frequently nowadays, include billing and claims implementations with them. Policy, of those three components, generally policy does tend to be the most difficult and challenging to implement for a number of different reasons, but because of the complexity of the lines of business that you have to implement, the workflow, different things like that, we demand a lot out of our policy systems, and putting them into production and configuring them appropriately can be challenging. And so that's really the context of what we're talking about. So when we think about keeping success simple, there are really three things that you have to well define before you go into your project in order to be successful. You have to establish your partnerships, looking at how you're going to work with internal and external resources to operate as one team. Are you getting the right expertise internally, and what are you leveraging externally? More and more policy administration solution implementations are involving multiple SIs, and in addition to the insurer staff, often bringing together an SI or services organization that focuses on perhaps quality and QA, another one that focuses on potentially on configuring the solution, possibly another to do some remedial work with integration to existing systems, so that pulling together what kind of partnerships are going to make you successful is critically important at the beginning. And it's important also for that partnership to be built with your business community, between IT and the business stakeholders or the overall stakeholders for this project. We're having the same understanding at the beginning of the project of scope, timelines, cost, and what your goals are. And having that accountability on the business level and the IT level is extremely important. And we'll talk a lot more about that. Keeping success simple really comes down to really clearly defining what your success criteria is. What is that scope? What are the metrics for success? What are the business metrics as well as the project metrics that need to be addressed in order to be successful? And really defining known and defined, well-defined requirements. whether that is requirements looking at from a process perspective in understanding your business process overall and how your business process is going to transform during this transformation, or how the detailed requirements around the product that you're configuring, the process that you're configuring, or the screens and the batch jobs that you're configuring. And then finally, well-defining your operating model and what is that shared methodology that everyone on the team is going to engage in terms of for executing the project. How are you going to deal with change management? How are you going to deal with governance? How are you going to deal with quality? So really defining that operating model well at the beginning.